This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media and the Rule Classroom, sponsors of the 2025 Rule Natural Resources Investment Symposium, July 7 through 11, either live in Boca Raton or via live stream in the comfort and convenience of your own home or office. However you propose to attend, there's a few things about the conference that you need to know. The first is that we'll give you over 50 hours of very valuable but very dense instructional programming, more than you can possibly absorb in the 4 days that we present it to you. To that end, whether you attend via live stream or live, we will have recordings of the conference available to you for a year after the conference is over, and you'll need access to those recordings. The second thing that you need to know is that before the conference, we interview every single exhibitor and every speaker so that you can allocate your time and your financial resources more efficiently before the conference and at the conference. Another thing that you need to know is that at our conference, unlike any other investment conference on the planet, we vet our exhibitors. Every single exhibitor, public company exhibitor, is owned in an account owned or managed by the conference sponsors. No guarantee, sadly, that because I own a stock, it goes up. But there is a guarantee that unlike any other investment conference on the planet, we have vetted with our own money every single exhibitor. That attention allows us to make you, the attendee, a promise not made by any other conference. If you believe for any reason that we haven't earned the tuition that we charge you to attend our conference, either live or via live stream, simply email us and we will refund your money. The financial risk is all ours. Mercifully, in 30 years of putting on this conference, we've had to refund less than 0.1% of the fees we charge. That notwithstanding, the guarantee is all there and solid gold. So let's begin the process. Today's interview is with Fred Bell, CEO of Elemental Altus. As I disclosed earlier, I am a shareholder, and I've been a shareholder for a very, very, very long time. Fred, first of all, thank you for a lot of effort on behalf of individual shareholders, but thank you in particular for your support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium.
Thank you for having us there, Rick, and very excited to come for the first time, actually.
Fred, tell me something about your background, what you did to prepare yourself to be CEO at a relatively young age of Elemental Altus, and why we should frankly care about your questions, your answers, to the nosy questions that will come after.
So, look, one of the quirks of my background is I actually studied history at university, and I somewhat fell into the mining space by accident. But that actually led me to, in many ways, where I am today. And that's because I started off by being on the really pointy end, the exploration end of the industry in Australia in 2010. And those experiences that I had going through a uranium company that was both in Australia and in Malawi at that time, and going through Fukushima and the uranium cycle and 2010, 2011 was a volatile period. And I saw firsthand how, in those types of markets, you are extremely cyclical markets. You can be extremely dependent on the market conditions. And I saw that for the good side, and I saw it for the bad side. But what it really helped me do is it helped me think critically about the business model and about the durability and the competitive advantages of the different models within the mining industry. And doing that, and having maybe got those scars early on, enabled me to really be critical about it. And I came out from that experience thinking the best way to play the mining space, in my opinion, one of the best risk-weighted ways, is actually the royalty model. And that was how we came to set up what we have today as Elemental Altus Royalties, and really build it from the ground up as a private company and through to its listing and where we are today.
That's an interesting answer. I'm reminded that my friend Tom Kaplan was also a history major and used that knowledge of history and cyclicality to build $1 billion fortune in natural resources. So that's an interesting take on things. So after having been through, as you describe it, the pointy edge of exploration, you settled on the royalty and presumably royalty and streaming business model. Tell us something about why you think that that's a preferred investment or financing mechanism in the mining space.
Look, it's one of the things I learned in being in a market that went from a high to a low very quickly, was that in a pre-revenue business, you are very dependent on effectively your equity price to raise capital and where you are. And so for us, being able to be cash generating and revenue generating, at an earlier stage in the company's history than almost any other route in the mining space, I think that gives us an ability to not dilute ourselves in the downturns. And so what we really focused on from day one was producing royalties and cash flow positive. And so we could control when we did financings, and being able to do that, I think, means that we could protect a lot of the downside on fundraising, and give our shareholders the best of the business. And the best of the business is our exploration optionality. And the best of the business is having uncapped royalties, which are linked to the top line commodity price. So you've got inflation protection there. You can diversify more than most junior or mid-tier mining companies could ever hope to. And you get the revenue from day one.
The genesis of Elemental Altus, as people might gather, is two different companies. One, a more conventional royalty company, and the other, an exploration company focused on Africa. Could you talk about the process that Elemental Altus has of both buying royalties, but also creating them through exploration?
And it's a great distinction, because actually we are just at the moment about to get revenue from a royalty for the first time that was put into production by Allied Gold. And that project came from the generation side. So that was a license that was wholly owned, that was advanced through the early stages. And we ended up selling it to the mining company next door, who have now done the really hard work of taking it into production, of putting in the CapEx and developing it through their mine. And we have continuing exposure now, uncapped forever, on those projects with that operator. And that is a slightly different approach to the more, if you look at the royalty and streaming space, conventional approach of buying existing royalties and creating new royalties on streams on assets, often with the operator or counterparties. But I think similar to some other companies in the space, we've found that blended approach can get you the best of both in terms of the opportunity set, but also really making sure that we're not just growing to get bigger. We're actually really focused on trying to add value for shareholders at the same time.
Two other royalty companies or hybrid royal companies who will also be exhibiting EMX Royalty and Altius, no relation, point out that their exploration businesses, the expertise involved in the exploration businesses, actually make them have much better access to purchased royalties and make them better at analyzing purchased royalties. Are you finding similar synergies in Elemental Altus?
One of the interesting aspects I would say is that actually, as you become a larger company and as you grow, you tend to be brought more deal flow, whether that's from companies, whether it's from investment bankers and advisors. And you get to a certain stage where actually the amount of opportunities you are being brought are somewhat prohibitive, because there are just too many to be able to properly review and diligence and analyze. And so if you're not careful, you can find yourself in a position where you don't escape your office, because you are just constantly trying to keep up with the volume of opportunities coming in. And that's where I think the experience, the networks, the intellectual property, I think that's where it comes in being able to kill things quickly and actually give yourself the time and the space and the bandwidth to go to some of the countries where actually the mining operations are happening and get feet on the ground outside of Toronto or London or Vancouver or Perth, and actually get to places where people are working and find a different set of opportunities. And if you understand the context locally of what is going on, you are much better informed, I think, often than sitting in your office. And I think that is the characteristic you're talking to in terms of that really on the ground knowledge and experience that you can get through a combination of those models.
Fred, take us through some of the more relevant assets in Elemental Altus. Let us know a little bit about the physical constituents of the company.
Look, the two biggest cornerstone assets that I think all shareholders would want to learn more about would be the Caserones copper mine in Chile, run by Lundin Mining. That's the Lundin family behind it as a major shareholder, but that is a large copper porphyry, approximately 15-year mine life on reserves. But as I sit here today, I probably look at it as an asset that may outlive me. and we have an uncapped royalty on that going forwards. And last year was the first year that they have done exploration at the mine in over a decade, and they've expanded that drill program coming into this year. So they should be having some updates coming on that over the course of the year. And then the second asset that I think people would really want to know about is Capricorn's Karlawinda gold mine in Western Australia. And that was actually a relatively new mine in West Australia. It came into production in 2021, but that is an asset there that, again, has a really, really long mine life potential. It's a large cornerstone, uncapped royalty for us. And most encouragingly, it's not just the reserve replacement they've done to date, which is continuing to make the mine bigger than it was when we acquired the royalty at no cost to us, but they also announced that they're doing a 50% expansion in throughput at the mine. And they're permitting it this year and looking to have it up and run next year. And that, for people who want to understand the royalty model, that is one of the great benefits you get in terms of that optionality. They'll spend $150, $200 million expanding the mine, and we won't pay another dollar, but we will still continue to get 2% net smelter return royalty on all the gold that is produced there going forwards. So those two assets, Lundin Mining's Caserones copper mine and Capricorn's Karlawinda gold mine, those are two cornerstone, multi-decade, long-life, uncapped royalties in the company.
So with the company's genesis in Africa and with a copper mine in Chile and a gold mine in Australia, one would suggest that your company is a sort of a go-anywhere, do-anything company, not commodity-specific, not geography-specific, but more opportunity-focused. Is that an accurate assumption?
I think that definitely is partly the case. We've always remained weighted towards precious metals and gold, but we have looked at other opportunities, and we did a very good, it was a mineral sands royalty we bought from what is now Barrick Gold that was a non-core asset but had a 40% IRR on a producing mine. We recently bought a tungsten royalty in Canada with Fireweed Metals, another company that Lundins are the major shareholders in. And that, again, we were buying that royalty from a junior exploration company that wanted the cash and owned this as a result of historical transaction. So for us, having the flexibility to be able to really look opportunistically for deep value is incredibly important. And as you say, our portfolio today, our biggest jurisdiction is Australia, but we're incredibly diverse across Australia, South America, North America, West Africa, and we have a pretty broad portfolio when you go down to the exploration and development assets. And I think today our portfolio covers over 13,000 square kilometers of mining and exploration licenses. And that is 13,000 square kilometers of optionality that we have to future commodity prices, to exploration. And so we're continually, as we build out the revenue base, and we've had 7 years since we started the company of record revenue every single year. Going into this year, we will have 100% more money coming in than we did last year. And that's at a $2,600 gold price. I'd like to say our G&A, our costs will be lower than they were last year. So we'll have lower costs, we'll have more than double the money coming in. And we have this fantastic exploration optionality across the other 60 non-producing royalties in our portfolio that I think often get overlooked. If we have the time, always very open and to talk to shareholders and walk them through it. And I hope at your conference we'll have the opportunity to talk to maybe some existing shareholders as well as potential new investors and be able to take them through a bit of a deep dive.
Well, hopefully you'll have the opportunity before then. I like my attendees to reach out to companies before the conference so they can allocate their time and financial resources more efficiently. Fred, to the extent that people watching this video want to learn more about Elemental Altus, who exactly do they contact and how exactly do they contact them?
Look, the best way is always feel free to email us directly. And my email should be on announcements and on the website. So please feel free to email or call the office and we'd be happy to speak to you. I think also a really good resource that we have put out for now 2 years in a row is an asset handbook where we try and show shareholders and investors a summary of all of our assets, and that's available on our website as well. So please always, we actually really enjoy hearing from shareholders. It's great to hear an outside perspective, and talk to people who are joint owners in this company alongside us, and potential future owners. So the door and the phone is always open.
And what's the web address that people should access you at?
It is www.elementalaltus.com.
Fred, thank you for your efforts on behalf of shareholders, in particular your efforts on behalf of me. And thank you, too, for your sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. We look forward to hosting you in Boca Raton.
Very excited to be coming there. Thank you, Rick.